At Arizona State University, we've made online education better, smarter, and more personalized so you can go further in your aspiring field.
I decided to pursue medicine once I realized that ASU did have the online program for biological sciences. You're still required to learn the same curriculum. You're still being tested on the same content that anyone would be tested on in person. The comprehensiveness of the program prepared me so well for medical school.
Explore over 350 plus programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Coach on Blog Talk Radio. I'm your host, Edie Summers, and I am so grateful and blessed to have today as my guest Carolina Caro. Carolina is an author, inspiring speaker, and a life coach. She specializes in coaching corporate women and women in general, actually, I'm sure just people in general, on their journey of self-discovery to find their true passion. She believes that connecting to your authentic self is the key to real happiness, which in turn makes it possible for anyone to have a balanced life, a fulfilling career, nurturing relationships, abundance, and overall health and well-being. Carolina struggled for many years to find deeper meaning and purpose in her own life while she focused solely on having a thriving career. Her professional journey began in Montreal, where she trained as a molecular biologist. After working several years as a research scientist in the area of HIV/AIDS, she decided to pursue an MBA specializing in marketing. She then joined the business world in sales and brand management, working for the top pharmaceutical companies in the world. After several years of climbing the corporate ladder, she decided there had to be more to life than what she was doing. She surprised everyone, including herself, when she made a drastic life change by moving to New York City to develop creatively. She graduated from the Neighborhood Playhouse School of Theater, along the way gaining a love for acting and a deeper understanding of herself. She realized that her approach to living the life of her dreams inspired others to do the same. This led her to train with IPEC to become a life coach. Today, she believes that her life purpose is a journey of perpetual self-growth. She is dedicated to constantly becoming a better version of herself and continues to dream big. And in the process, she enjoys helping others uncover their own dreams and empowers them to take action to make them a reality. So, Carolina, thank you so much for being here. We are so lucky to have you. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Edie. It's my pleasure.
Well, I'm just, I find your story honestly fascinating because it sounds like, obviously you worked in the corporate world for a really long time doing some really fascinating things, by the way. I'm really curious to know, maybe at some point, maybe you can tell us more about your work as studying, researching HIV and AIDS and all of those. But first, I was curious to know if you could share and tell us more about your backstory. How did you get to where you are now? Because I know that it's a fascinating story, and I know that our listeners would love to hear it, including myself.
Well, I think for me, it really dates back so young. I came from a family. My parents, none of them graduated from high school, and they, we came from very humble beginnings. Like my parents had it tough. They came from Venezuela with very little, and they really ingrained in my brother and I, to get a strong education, and that would be the secret to having anything that you wanted. And so they really brainwashed us almost from a very young age. And I think that out of love and out of wanting a better future for ourselves, and I think it's a very common story of, many immigrant and even non-immigrant children, you grow up and your parents want the best for you. And I think their generation was one where it was really about just putting food on the table and not really having the luxury or the option of asking themselves questions that we ask ourselves now of, what are we passionate about and stuff like that. They were really just about, feeding the family and taking care of basic needs. And so when I grew up, it was really either you were a doctor or an engineer or a lawyer, and I come from a half Indian, half Spanish background. So my mom was Indian, and if she's listening in, she'll be like, she'll be laughing at this. But they want a doctor in the family, and that's what it comes down to is Indian people. It's like you go into medical school, and I say that jokingly, but at the time it was certainly something I took very seriously, and and I enjoyed science. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. I loved learning, and so it was really from a very young age. I was like, okay, I must become a doctor, and so that was really plan A for my life. And I don't say that begrudgingly in any way towards my parents. I love them to death, and again, I think any family that had a similar type of mentality, it was really out of wanting the best for their kids, and so that's how I trained to go into, so I studied biology, I studied molecular biology, and I got my bachelor's in that, and then I didn't get into pre-medical school, so I did after my bachelor degree, I went into graduate school, and so I was enrolled in a PhD program called experimental medicine, and that's where I trained as a research scientist, and I was on the bench for a long time. And it was an exciting time. Like I enjoyed, again, it's back to I enjoyed the things that I was learning. I think for me it's always been about learning different things, and research was great at the time, but again, it was always something like, no, this is not what appeals to me, and especially since, again, at the back of my head was like, you're going to go for this goal of being a doctor. And then the way that I later got into the MBA, it was kind of almost by fluke. It was something I enjoyed. Like the story really is that I enjoyed online trading. I used to do trading stocks while I was waiting for things. When you're a researcher, you've got a lot of downtime. Things are incubating and mixing, stuff like that. So I used to trade online, and that's really how. Wow. I was like, wow, I'd probably be really good at this if I actually had an education in this, and that's really how I fell into that. So I actually cut my PhD program. I graduated with a master's, and then I decided, okay, I'm going to go do this. And I went back to research after that because I kept trying to get into medical school and not getting in. And at one point, I remember my father saying to me, maybe this is just the universe's way of saying this is not the road for you. And again, this was my father, not my mom, who, always, again, wanted that doctor in the family. But anyway, so wow. I joined the pharmaceutical industry, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry. That also happened by chance. And I worked in the pharmaceutical industry for different years, and for many years in different functions. So I started on the medical side, and then I was a product manager. I did continuing medical education, so a lot of different roles. And I think I just got, at one point, I was really at the peak, at the top of my game. I finally got the position that I had always wanted, which was to be leading a brand. And really at the top of my game, and I had my waterfront condo, the fancy car, like it just had everything that I had always kind of thought I wanted. And I really got to the point where I thought to myself, if this is what it's supposed to be like at the top of your game, there's got to be more. And so, when people ask me, were you unhappy? I can't say I was unhappy, but I wasn't fulfilled, if that makes sense.
Yes. So I know there's more, because then I mean, first of all, I just want to say, wow, what a ride so far. I mean, really, I find it fascinating. I know it's a lot to. I mean, I remember having a few friends growing up who also had that pressure from their parents there were only a few choices, and I think I know one of my friends wanted to be a writer, I think, and that wasn't one of the options, so I think she may write today now, I'm not sure, but it's just so interesting how what I hear you saying is that, you did reach the top of your game, and yet you didn't feel fulfilled.
And I think that's so interesting what you were saying, because I think, the story of your friend, my story, it's such a common story, and I think I see it all the time when people start opening up to me, which is how I got into the coaching, which I'll get into after. But it really is, so many of us who kind of were trying to fit into a box based on the fact that, our parents just wanted the best for us and thinking these are the great boxes to be in, so it would be great if you guys could fit into one of these boxes, and thinking, yeah, absolutely, yes. I want a great life, without realizing that, each of us are born with unique gifts and unique talents, and when we express them fully, success comes and money comes and all those kinds of things that I think our parents were worried about, which again comes back to having that secure and that stable life that they didn't have and wanted to impart to us, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's of course, very noble, and we can't, of course our parents want the best for us. So, and it's so interesting. So what do you do when you don't fit into a box perfectly? What if parts of yourself are expanding outside the box, or it's not a perfect fit? I mean, this is the part of your story where you're at the top of your game, and yet you don't feel like you fit inside this box that was either created for you or that you felt compelled to step inside of. So
right.
What happened then? It's, what happened
well,
then?
That's when things got a little crazy. Well, that's when basically life changed, and I really started to, as many people when they're having sort of that life-changing moment, it was really about asking signs. And I think that I've always had, as we all do, a connection with something greater, the universe. And it's in those moments where things are tough that you're kind of on your knees kind of going, okay, I need help, I need guidance here. And, in the past, I think I had always reached out, but, not necessarily, it wasn't the time for me to be listening to the answers, or I ignored them, or I just wasn't ready to take a look at them. And at this particular crossroad, when I started asking for signs, it started, and there were many. I was constantly going, okay, is this, just to confirm, when I talk to the universe, I'm like, okay, is this, like, I just, kind of 2 out of 3, I just want to make sure that, you're making a big decision in your life. I wanted to be sure that I was walking in the right direction. And so for me, I had started taking acting classes, and it just spoke to me. It spoke to me about discovering this new side to myself, a creative side, a side that I had probably just kind of, put aside and muffled and not expressed fully. And I didn't really know fully what I wanted to do with it at the time, but I knew that it was calling to me. And so I did. I left my job, and I went to New York City, and I signed up for a conservatory program to study acting full time, and it was a very full-time program.
That's great.
Yeah. So,
I love it.
Well, great. I have to say, when I first got there, I had, a lot of people, when they hear my story, they're like, oh, so then you just had this, like, aha moment, and you went down this road, and it wasn't all roses. That's the thing. It's not like I went from not knowing what I was doing or not being fulfilled to all of a sudden waking up one day being in New York and being fulfilled. It didn't happen like that at all. And and the road was actually, when I first got to New York, it was really tough, because here I was completely out of my element. First of all, in a new city, I had left my friends, my family. I had sold everything that I had, which in and of itself were things that represented to me what I had worked so hard to accomplish. So I was leaving behind everything that I associated with who I was,
Oh, wow. But what an I think that, doesn't that happen though? Have you noticed this when you're coaching people, when you're coaching them on finding their life's purpose, you almost have to unpack everything that you've been carrying with you up to that point. I mean, except for maybe like your skills, you can bring those with you because you want to build upon what you already know. But you sort of, did you find it liberating to
Absolutely.
Sort of have to, you essentially kind of climb down that corporate ladder.
it's funny when you said that. It reminded me of the saying when it says the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And I think that's exactly how I felt. At first, I felt like, oh my God, what did you just do? And I went through a period of like, maybe you are going through a midlife crisis, maybe you are crazy, because obviously a lot of people thought, what is she doing? Like, why would she leave now? So there was that moment, and it lasted for a very long time. And I tell my friends this story. Like when I used to cross the border to go home from U.S. to Canada. At the border, they used to take my papers and go to me, you're studying acting here at the Neighborhood Playhouse School of Theater, just because that's the information that was on my visa. I always felt compelled to say to them, yes, but I used to work for Pfizer, which was the pharmaceutical company, and it was just that, again, it was like an identification of everything. It was almost like, I don't want you to see me just as this. I used to be all of these things as well, and I mean, obviously the guy at the border couldn't care less about. He was just asking me what's on my visa, right? Like he doesn't care. But it was certainly representative of what I was feeling, which is like it's like this other person just died. I don't even know who she is anymore, and now you're calling me an actress,
And what does that mean? What does it mean to be, how to identify with being an actor now? And I think it's so interesting how all of us crave being free, which is what I hear you. I mean, it sounds like when you switched careers like that drastically and went to study acting, which is, to me, is essentially studying the human psyche and the human soul, you were stepping into freedom. Which is what all of us crave, and yet at the same time, that's like the most terrifying place, because then how do we explain ourselves and identify ourselves? What do we put on a resume then? How do we explain ourselves to the outside world? But this is what you specialize in. This is what I hear you saying is it's not what you do, it's who you are.
Right. And I think that up until that point, I didn't have that distinction, and I didn't know that. And it took losing, or what I perceived as losing everything I thought I was up until that point, because my identity was so deeply rooted in everything that I had accomplished, either through my education or through my career. I was my resume, I was my CV. So when you took that away from me, and now you put me in New York in an acting conservatory program with people that were much younger than I was, and I was lost, completely lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know. So what am I striving to be now? And again, back to like, if it's not that career, then it's this career. And that's when it happened. That's when the aha moment of it has nothing to do with any of those things. It's really about getting in touch with that deeper part of you, that part that is connected to something higher, and within that there's answers about everything, about what it is that you do enjoy doing, because again, coming back to the fact that we do have unique gifts that we're meant to share with the world, and and have wonderful relationships and have abundance and all those things that we're meant to experience, but it comes from having access to that, which I think most of us, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. You were going to say something. Most of us.
Oh, I was just going to say that most of us associate, when I even say finding your life's purpose, I think people automatically assume that I'm just referring to their career, and it's because we're so trained to think that you are what you do. And whenever, even just like when you're at an event or at a party, I mean, the first thing out of people's mouths is usually, well, so what do you do? Right? And so
it really is.
Yeah. It's not
everyone
who are
wants
you?
to know what you do. I know, it's so interesting to me, because when I was dealing with a chronic condition, I didn't have an answer for that. I was terrified of answering people. I knew I was going to be asked that question. So what do you do? And I had no answer for them, because I didn't do anything at the time. There were a few years there when I was just, and I know that you're. Not to segue into this, but I do know that you mentioned to me, Carolina, that you actually have been dealing with a health challenge, which is maybe we can get into that in just a little bit here, but I first just wanted to sort of touch base on this. You were talking about getting in touch with the higher, sort of what, if you want to call it God, or, I mean, you said, when I got chills when you said you got in touch with that you had your aha moment, because then did you describe it as listening when you heard? Was it when you heard God speaking with you, or was it when you were able to get in touch with that higher sense of purpose? You mentioned something that I found really interesting, which I'd love to hear you explain more about.
Well, I think that's always there. It's just,
okay.
as I was mentioning before, I think we choose not to listen. And also, I think sometimes the antenna or the radar is not as sharp, because we go about our day filled with so many things. We're so busy, and there's work, there's this, there's that responsibility. We're doing our groceries, we're doing so many different things, and we're running around. And so that quiet time, or that stillness, or slowing down the pace so that we can actually get in touch with that part, is something that we're not trained to do. And so even when I tell people, whether you choose to journal, you choose to meditate, choose whatever speaks to you, but just slow down so you can actually start getting in touch with that part. And for me, that happened when I was at the neighborhood playhouse, and it happened through many different things that we did in that self-discovery process, because I remember our acting teacher saying to us that before you can play somebody else, you really have to know who you are, and know all your bobos, and know everything that hurts, all your sort of darknesses, the things that you're afraid of, and your insecurities and all that. Really get to know all of that and just own who you are, and then you can start learning how to be an actor. And really that getting in touch with that was during that time, and that's when I think the answers are it's all there. Like, we have all the answers to everything that that we need. We know what we're supposed to be doing. And so normally when I'm coaching clients, it's really not about me telling them anything. It's about just helping them uncover what it is that they already know, because either they've lost touch with it, or they've been listening to other people's voices or influences, just like I had been, all of the programming that gets done, and whether, it comes from a good place or a not so good place, it doesn't matter. It's not yours,
Oh, and that is so profound. It's not yours. It's so I guess the question is, what is yours? What are your gifts, and then how do you bring those to the world? How do you express those? This is kind of the heart of, if I'm hearing you correctly, what it means to be living from your purpose. Is that what it is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I think then, in every area of your life, it's almost like you start knowing, okay, I need to be going in this direction, or I need to be doing that, or, you're compelled to action versus, it coming from an intellectual place. The only way that I can describe it is that I used to chase things, while now I just let things happen. And that doesn't mean I'm any less active, because it's not a matter of staying home, sitting on your couch and not doing anything. On the contrary, I'm probably busier than I've ever been, but it's the action that I take is not from self-initiated plans almost. It's almost like the ideas come, and I do practice meditation every day, so I think that also has helped me to, even more so get in touch with that inner knowing, or whatever you want to call it. And it helps, I think. You start being able to connect with that more, and so the knowing, you're just more in tune with the knowing, and that it's accessible to everyone, as I say all the time. It's already there. It's just a matter of tuning in or dialing into this.
I love so many things that you said there, Carolina, about it's about you have this antenna, and it's about, I love how you say, first of all, slowing down. We're so busy, and we're doing so many things that we think we should be doing, that we almost don't have time for our life,
Right.
like the life of our true life, our passion, and our soul's purpose. And I love the idea of this antenna that's there, and this knowing that's there. We all know this, and yet getting in touch with it and letting that be your guide that's where the real shift happens.
Right.
And that's the challenge, I think. But I'd love to know more about. So when you were acting, when they were giving you these exercises, I'd be curious to know, like one of those. Are you able to share one of those that they get, or is it too hard to explain on the radio to people?
Well, no. I mean, I think what it is that, first of all, in the first year, which is that year that I would say all of us do most of our self-growth, it's unscripted. So we never, I mean, for the majority, like towards the end, we were more involved with plays and so forth, but a bulk of the work comes from just improv. And I think what happens when you're up doing something that's improvisational is there's a gift that we were taught, which is about being in the moment, because something about improv, when you're just there, and what happens to everybody, I think, when you're there at first is like you're trying to think, what's my next line going to be? You're in your head, you're sweating, you're nervous, you're just like, oh my God, and I hope I'm going to be funny. All these things are happening and going on in your head, and what they're training us to do is that if you put all that aside, if you get rid of all the thoughts that your brain is telling you at that moment, and you can actually just be present right there, then everything you need to say is going to come through you. You don't need to push it. You don't need to force it, and you're enough. And there was something about everything that we were taught that was extremely spiritual, because it was really And in fact, it was my acting teacher who told me, you guys need to read The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. And so, many of those moments, those just big light bulb moments happened while I was training, and it was really about being able to be there, exactly present in that moment with nothing planned, nothing rehearsed, and just allowing whatever was going to happen, and that's when the magic happens. That's when the magic happens, and I think that's like the secret to life at the end of the day. And I happen to learn it in that environment, which is not to say that everyone has to quit their job now and go to acting school or anything like that, but it happened that way for me.
Love it. And I love that. I find that so interesting. So they were saying you can't portray anyone else until you know yourself really well. So the whole first part of your acting training was, you were saying, improv and learning to be present and letting, it sounds like, life force or inspiration or that magic that you talk about come through you, or when it comes through you, that's what creates the magic. And this is, I know this is what I'm learning to do, is to be more mindful, to be more present, to slow down, and not to force any type of situation. I know that we all want we all want our lives to be like this magical story, and it is, isn't it? But I think that when we try to force things, that's like the opposite. We end up having the opposite experience, as opposed to the magic is in sort of, I guess, is it going with the flow of the storyline as opposed to, I don't know.
No, I think you said it beautifully, because it's that whole flow, the idea of being in the flow versus, what your idea, that your self-imposed idea of what that flow should look like. Instead of like, it's almost like the way I like to think of it is I can have certain ideas, but the universe tends to have even greater ideas or better ideas of where I need to be and how things need to roll out. And, because we cannot have that kind of 360-degree view on everything and how things are going to play out and roll out. And so why not just relax into and surrender into what needs to be? And I think, that's what I learned from being on the stage. And also the other thing is just the listening it's kind of twofold. We learn to listen to the other person, so to take off the attention off of ourselves and onto the other person. And I think that's something else that's so, again, key lesson in life is that we just walk around so sometimes just self-consumed about what we're going through and our issues and this and that, and just with a light focused on us instead of like outward to be of service and how can I help or how can I contribute, and knowing that in that spirit everything else does fall into place. Everything else happens by itself. You don't have to force it, as you were saying. So
Carolina, this is a great place to take a little break. We're going to relax into the moment here just for a few minutes and kind of think about what you just said. I love the idea of just sort of going with the flow and seeing where life is going to take you. So this is where our life's purpose can start to unfold, is when we relax into the present moment and go with the flow of the storyline. We'll be back. It's the bottom of the hour here on Blog Talk Radio, The Wellness Coach. We'll be back in just a few seconds. Hi, everyone. For anyone who's just tuning in, you are listening to The Wellness Coach on Blog Talk Radio. My guest today is Carolina Caro. Carolina is an author, inspiring speaker, and a life coach. She specializes in coaching women and people on their journey of self-discovery to find their true passion. She believes that connecting to your authentic self is the key to real happiness, which in turn makes it then possible for anyone to have a balanced life, a fulfilling career, nurturing relationships, abundance, and overall health and well-being. So, Carolina, welcome back. And we were just talking about sort of slowing down the pace and being more in the present moment. And out of that, your life's purpose starts to naturally unfold. And so here we are. We've all quit our jobs, and maybe some of us have taken an acting class or gone on a cruise or done something completely out in left field, and here we are. So what's the next step for those of us who have been brave enough to follow our life's calling?
Well, I certainly don't want to give anyone who's listening the impression that in order to get to this place, it needs to be anything as drastic as that. Because first, a lot of time what I do tell people is, if you're not at least open to it or comfortable at the time, it's okay. Like, you know, I think we get so stressed about, even people get stressed about, I don't know what my life's purpose is, and I don't know, and I don't know what I enjoy doing. And you ask them, like, so what are you passionate about? I don't know. And we put just so much pressure on ourselves where, where it's like, this is about the journey, and you feel like you might not know today, and that's okay. And you know, it's about taking baby steps. So I think for anyone who is listening who doesn't know today, it's about starting to ask yourselves those questions. And sometimes when people don't know what it is that they enjoy doing or that they're passionate about, what then I like to do is, well, tell me what you absolutely know for sure that you don't like to do. And let me tell you, most people have a pretty good idea of what it is that they don't want to be doing, and they can name a whole long list. And out of that, you start gleaning what it is that they possibly might be interested in. And a lot of times what holds people back from really looking at it like face on is the fear that if I finally admit to myself that this is what I'm dreaming of, then I just might have to do something about it. And as we've all been talking about here, when you make the jump, first of all, normally there's no turning back, because once you open that door, you're not going to be happy moving backwards. It's all about moving forward. And once you open that door, you have to, you're walking through it. And it's not always, before you get to sort of the light at the end of the tunnel, there is that process where it feels like you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. You're in all this, you're looking at all these things about yourself that you didn't want to acknowledge, and there's work to do there. There's work, and you have to commit to doing that work. And so, I think that's part of the journey as well.
And that could be, maybe that's why people don't want to really think about what they really want to do, because there is that journey that's involved in it. It's not like you magically go from point A to point B, right? Like there's the journey is the fun part, though, too. I mean, it can seem, I know that there's a lot of unknown involved, but I love how you mentioned just taking baby steps, right? Because isn't that how you get from point A to point B, is you try not to do it all at once, because it's just completely overwhelming.
Exactly. And I think, for me, it happened that way, that I needed the total disconnect. And, I'm happy to have gone through it. And that was my journey and my story. For other people, it could be as simple as, I know that I'm doing this. I know that eventually I'd like to be doing that. Can you help me get there? These are the things that I'm scared about. I'm scared about, I don't know if I'll make enough money when I leave what I'm doing now versus, what I'd really like to be doing. I don't know if, I'll actually be really happy, because what people fear is like, I know I'm doing this. I know I don't love it, just like I was not necessarily completely fulfilled, but I knew what I was doing. I was good at what I was doing, and it brought me quite a bit of income. So people, it's like it's what you're comfortable with and what you know. So to leave that in order to pursue the unknown that you think you'll be happy doing, but you're not quite sure because you've never done it. And so there's all this uncertainty and all this fear, and it's helping people sort of navigate through that. And knowing that even if you change your mind tomorrow, I remember my dad telling me, he's like, again, this is my dad and not my mom. But, she's come a long way too. I don't want to say that she, a completely different place from when I made all these decisions so many years ago. But I remember my dad saying to me, what's the worst thing that can happen? He's like, you change your mind and, you just go back to what you were doing, and there is no end of the world, and I think sometimes even exploring that with people, like, what's the worst thing that can happen? Let's talk out that worst case scenario. What are you going to end up on the street and, without anything, whatever people are thinking about, to make them realize that actually probably whatever scenario they've got going on in their head is actually not going to happen, and the chances of that happening are very small, if at all, right?
No, I think that's really important to address that, though, because I think that is a deep-set fear that a lot of us have, especially when we're facing change, is we tend to think, all or nothing, like, either I'm going to be a smashing success overnight by some miracle, or I'm going to end up on the streets. And whereas in reality, it's probably, you could end up being a smashing success, and that's, of course, ultimately, if you keep pursuing something, you're going to be successful at it. It's probably sort of inevitable, but very, very few of us are going to have like this. It's not going to be like this devastating scenario either that I think so many of us imagine, which is, I think, really interesting because, let's face it, fear holds a lot of us back, and it's very easy to imagine. That I think a lot of us crave safety, and if you're already in a career that feels very safe, why rock the boat?
Right.
Especially the older you get. I think these are a lot of things that we tell ourselves, and yet in reality, they're just thought constructs, aren't they? It's amazing to me how powerful our minds are.
That's exactly it. And
keeping us in
place.
And
I think that we just, like you're saying, we build up all these scenarios in our minds, like these defense mechanisms, these very sophisticated defense mechanisms to protect ourselves from what we believe these terrible outcomes are going to be if we take the risk of pursuing a career, a relationship, whatever it happens to be for people. You know, it's incredible the things that we do from to keep ourselves from being vulnerable. And but the thing is that when you make that jump, when you are vulnerable, it's behind that all the good stuff lies. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, absolutely. I love that you mentioned that vulnerability. I think that's again, talk about fear. That's what so many of us are afraid of, is being vulnerable, and yet that is where all the good stuff is. I know I'm definitely learning that in my life. You have to kind of let that wall down, whether it is in your professional life or in order to walk through the door. You can't walk through a wall. Maybe some people can, but there has to be a door in that wall somewhere that you allow yourself to walk through. And also in our personal lives, I think it's really interesting when we're setting goals and when we're making these big changes that are going to add up to big changes in our lives, and we're talking about these mental constructs and these walls of fear. Talk about the box that you were talking about earlier. You know, that box, sometimes we think of that box can be a box of opportunity, right? Like there's the box of being a lawyer, there's the box of being a doctor. There's these boxes that we all know and are familiar with, and yet at the same time they can become something that we end up finding ourselves a prisoner of at the same time. And that can be those mental ways of thinking that it's amazing to me. I'm sure you've run into this yourself as being a coach, is when you're coaching someone is all of us have, again, what we're talking about, all these reasons, these thoughts why we can't change. And that is what ends up creating a box around you. And yet you really only need, do you find this true, Carolina, that you really only need one reason why you can change? Have you found that to be true? Is that what your aha moment was? Was it?
Exactly. It's almost like having a threshold of thinking positively in that direction. And then when you hit that, then that keeps you going through whatever hurdles are going to come. You just hold on to that reason of why you can accomplish this and why you will get through all those doubtful moments or all those fearful moments or all those things that are bound to come up. They're bound to come up because that's when you're, in my opinion, that's when you're undoing years of programming. And again, whether it came from a good place from your parents or your teachers or your uncles or your aunts or whoever that programming came from a very young age, there's ideas that are, that we absorb, that we take on, and we have a way of seeing the world that comes from a very young age. And based on those things, that's how we live out, most of our adult life until we get to that point where we recognize that those ideas, those concepts either no longer serve us or they're not ours. And we start thinking, okay, well then what is my truth? And we start connecting with our truth. And once we start connecting with our truth, that's when we can let all those things that are ours, our gifts, our talents, all of that shine through. And I think that's the moment where you connect into your flow. And when you do, that's where I really do believe you don't need to be chasing anything anymore. You don't need to be chasing money. You don't need to be chasing career. You don't need to chase a relationship. Everything finds you. Everything finds you. At least that's my belief. But it's so, I don't want to say it's difficult. It's foreign. It's foreign for us to do that because, I know for myself, for example, for me, it always feels like I'm not doing enough. Like if for example, I need to be out there, I need to be go. If I'm talking about career or if it's about dating, well, I need to put myself out there. How is anyone going to find me if I'm not putting myself available or whatever? And I think that what I've learned is that none of that is the case. What you need to do, where you need to be, everything sort of happens. While you're just out and about, things happen. You meet people. Things happen naturally.
Yeah, I think this is the part that's really challenging for people, is making that energetic shift. Because first of all, we're talking about if you're going to be there's a physical shift, right? If you're changing careers, that's a physical shift, and that's a pretty That's a pretty big deal for a lot of people. But then in order to make that shift, you have to shift energetically, don't you?
Definitely. And I think that that's where, for me, it comes down to the fact that I do surrender to a higher power, and I know that there's something else that is guiding or cooperating or co-creating with me in this flow. And again, I don't want it to seem like I do nothing. It's just that it's like when you're getting in touch with this, it's about you're prompted to act in a particular direction versus coming up with these things that are more from the intellect. And again, people show up, things, circumstances, everything just lines up in a particular way. Sometimes I'm so amazed of, I'll be thinking to myself, it would be really nice to meet someone who would know about this or that so I could have that information. And the next day, just by chance, you run into this person. So it's like, how do all these things, right, line up so perfectly? And so it's like the desire is there, and then I just put it out there. And I let it go, and that's what for me means being in this flow and being in that energetic shift where there's a trust that all these things are going to happen. And again, I'm not saying I'm perfect at this, because I have many moments where my personality, I'm quite a type A, so I'm quite a driver, and I tend to want to take the wheel, and there's something very, almost arrogant about it, thinking that I can do a better job than the universe at times. But I do get into that mindset, as crazy, as silly as it might be. And it's funny, because when I do get into that mindset where I'm pushing, whether it's in my career or relationships or whatever it might be, nothing works out, or nothing works out as well as when I just let things go, which is, again, evidence over and over and over again for me about just let it go and just surrender.
I couldn't agree with you more, Carolina. I have tested the boundaries of that over and over again as myself, and maybe it's just ego, maybe it's all of those, the conditioning, the ways that we're conditioned as we're brought up. It's very hard to let go of the old way of being, but I couldn't agree with you more. It's the more you try to make something happen instead of surrendering. I love that word, surrendering, and I also love the word trust. I think that is a huge, huge part of it is trusting in a higher power, trusting in, God or universal force, universal energy, whatever you want to call it, whatever works for you. There is, in my experience, definitely something going on there, and I think it's can be challenging to trust and surrender. These aren't, exactly phrases that we talk about in our everyday lives, and yet they can have a huge impact on how your life plays out, to use the metaphor of acting again. I love the idea of trusting, and that's a challenge for a lot of people, and I think, but that's also where coaching comes in, isn't it? Is learning. I mean, coaching is about learning these skills and taking those small steps, but I think, doesn't it also teach you? I mean, none of us are in this alone. What I hear you saying is that you kind of you're kind of like sharpening that antenna and trusting in a higher power, and that's also where, I mean, I'm not saying coaches are God by any means, but again, none of us are in this alone, and I think coaching is such an exciting field to me, because coaches we're kind of on the edge of the frontier here, aren't we? And our goal is to assist people and empower them to realize, like you were saying, the answers are inside of you, but none of us are in this alone at the same time, and there's help along the way, whether it's a person or higher power. I don't know. I think that, living from your life's purpose is such an important thing to do, that it's worth everything, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I mean,
absolutely. And
being
I think
who you really are.
I couldn't agree more. I think what you were saying about, acknowledging that you're not in it alone, and the fact that that's sort of a universal thread in coaching, whatever area of coaching that you're in. When it comes to surrendering, I have to say that it's kind of interesting. I see it more with people that are, similar personality, very type A and driven in that way. Other people, it's more with coming up with or getting in touch with what it is that they want to do. For other people, it's overcoming fear. So you have people coming at different stages, and people working on getting over different things. For some people, it might be just such a strong programming of what they're accustomed to doing based on their childhood and ways that they've learned certain things and certain behaviors, certain fears, whatever, certain insecurities, and just even sometimes recognizing that they're there, because I think you get so accustomed to operating in a certain way that you're not even objective. Sometimes it's like you lose complete objectivity. And it's almost like when you're in a situation and you don't see it, but your best friend will be like, it's clear as day to the person who's on the outside. And that's what it is with our programming, is that it's so clear to the person who's on the outside, but to the person who's living it and experiencing it, they're not seeing it. They don't see, the mistakes, for lack of a better word, that they could be making. And I think first it's having that aha moment. Then comes actually the harder work and the time and the work that takes the longest, which I think is the reprogramming. And that is just, and that's constant. I don't think that you ever, it's sort of ongoing, but it takes concerted work and effort to program your mind from somewhere that it's used to going all the time because of so many years of going in a particular direction. It's like a habit. You've created this habit. You have to break that habit and create a new habit.
And that's what I love about coaching, because I know this is what you do, is you help people not only to break old habits and develop new habits, but also to serve as a mirror for them, right? Because we're all too close to ourselves to see maybe where we're stuck. And that's what's so that's what's so beautiful about coaching to me. And I know that Carolina, I just wanted to mention some of your websites here. If someone wanted to work with you, let me just scroll down here. We've got your website, CarolinaCaroCoaching.com. These are on the show page for anyone who's interested. If someone had a question for you, or how would they contact you?
They can either go to CarolinaCaroCoaching.com, and there's the contact page, and they can either put a question through there, or my email is also available. They can go through Facebook at Carolina Caro Coaching. There's many different ways, and I'm happy to take questions either online or offline or whatever anyone's comfortable with.
Okay. And I just wanted to make sure that we covered that so that people can get in touch with you. And I just wanted to, first of all, I just wanted to thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. And, I mean, I know that there's so much more to your story personally. I don't know, is there anything that you in particular, though, wanted to share with your listeners, anything in particular that you want, like any point you want to get across, or in our final few minutes here?
Well, I think I would say that no matter where we are in our journey, everything is happening in such divine perfection, and sometimes it's hard for us to see that because either we want to be at a particular place or particular destination. I know that it was certainly the case for me, that I've always felt like, I'm racing against, I'm not even sure what time frame that I had to get to a certain destination, or sometimes we have these certain goals in mind that we want to accomplish before a particular age or something like that. And just to kind of, if we can suspend those ideas and kind of toss those aside and just recognize that wherever we're at right now is where we need to be, whatever's happening right now, and whatever lessons are coming up for us are the lessons that we need to be going through, the people that are in our lives, whether they're supportive or challenging us. And both of those are important because both of them, again, it's about that mirror. And some of the biggest blessings that come up for us in our lives come through in the form of the biggest challenges and the most difficult moments, because I think that that's where we learn the greatest gifts about ourselves and recognize certain strengths and things that we didn't know we had, or even just or it informs us of the areas that we need to work on so that we can get to a place of greater happiness, greater fulfillment. So it's all is well.
All is well. Oh my gosh, Carolina, I love that. I love that when you say all is well. That what a beautiful mantra. And also, I'm going to use that one if that's okay with you. All is well.
Absolutely. I didn't come up with it.
And you didn't. Well, it's really perfect since we're talking about health and wellness as well. I mean, I think all of this is related to health and wellness because, you were mentioning earlier everything's interconnected. You were mentioning this, you and I were having a conversation, and we were talking about how everything is interconnected. So, whether we're talking about a career or it could be relationship or even a health challenge, anything along those lines, I really love how you say that, when you connect with your authentic self, everything aligns. And I love the idea of divine perfection, too. That's just another really great one. And I think it's really comforting to know that everything is interconnected and just to sort of, we were talking about earlier, relax. Everything's okay. I think we're so in a state of, kind of rushing around and thinking we have to be somewhere or be someone, whereas in reality, the more you relax into the moment, into the present moment, and relax into being your authentic self, that's when things really begin to flow. And I just, I know speaking of health and wellness, I know that we only have a few minutes here, but I know that you mentioned to me that you were going through a bit of a health challenge yourself, and I was just wondering if there's anything that you wanted to say about, kind of keeping yourself feeling positive and full of hope despite maybe having a health challenge, and how it's all just, it's that everything is going to be okay and all really is well.
Well, it's interesting. When I first basically was started to deal with this health challenge, and health was something that I had never had to deal with. I've always been in perfect health, and when I was having clients that were explaining to me health challenges, as much as that I was able to try to help them through it and coach the way I would normally coach any other kind of issue, that kind of connection and understanding what they're going through, because I feel like in every other area of my life I can almost be like, oh yeah, I've been there, done that, done that, and this particular area, not to say I was certainly wishing anything would happen, but so yes, I was basically, I went from having an abnormal PAP to basically being in pre-cancer stage with cervical cancer, and having to, according to my doctor, have a surgery that would basically I wouldn't be able to have children anymore, is what he was telling me, or would give the chances of me having children very low if I went through with this surgery. And so I've not, this is not something that I chose to do, and it didn't resonate with me. And all I can say about that is that it was almost like I felt like you're going through this so that everything that you do believe in about healing yourself and about having positive thoughts and about that everything is well, that I can practice that, and also so that there would be compassion towards people who are going through similar things. I'd be able to say, that now I have an understanding of what it is to go through all those things and to have fear associated with going through something like that. But again, it's, trusting in that higher power. And, I've heard miraculous stories of people who have healed themselves, and I do believe that, and that resonates with me. Now, am I saying to anyone to decline traditional medicine in certain cases? No, I'm saying whatever resonates with you. You make decisions, and there's a place for traditional medicine, and there's a place for non-traditional and meditation and all those kinds of other alternatives, and it really is at the end of the day what resonates with you. But yeah,
Carolina,
so I very much believe that.
Yeah. That is so beautiful. I just thank you so much for sharing that with us because, talk about being brave. That is, and talk about being on the journey. The journey is beautiful at times, and sometimes it's challenging at times, but that doesn't mean that it's not worth taking. And yes, things are going to come up along the way, but I love what you say about it is about what resonates with you, and doesn't that sort of help carry you along? What resonates with you is what's going to pull you through, in the long run. And I'm just I think that we're all very, very blessed that you shared all of your story with us today. I feel incredibly grateful to have you here, and I know our listeners do as well. And I encourage anyone who has any additional questions for Carolina to contact her through her website, CarolinaCaroCoaching.com. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you,
okay.
Edie. Thank you. It's been my pleasure to be on and to share this with you, and it's been fun as well. So
it's been really fun. And Carolina, I just thank you so much for being here, and I hope you come on again. And thank you so much for sharing your story, your inspiration, your wisdom, and your courage with us today. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening in. And this has been The Wellness Coach on Blog Talk Radio. I hope you check us out again next week. And everyone, I hope you have a great week. Take care.